Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Suzanne Purcell, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or zip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Point to Rise podcast. My name is Suzanne and I'm going to be your host today. Today's guest is Sue Ruhe. Now, Sue and I met really beautifully and briefly while I was a guest on her podcast that she's co-hosting with Marsha. And that podcast is called Everybody Holds a Story. And there were so many things that we have crossed paths in that we said, we need to make another podcast episode. We need to talk more. And this is exactly what you are going to dive into today and have the privilege to listening to. So Susan Ruhe is a BA and an RMT. She is an intuitive myofascial release therapist who taps into the physical and emotional traumas that lie deep within ourselves. She has been evolving her practice for over 15 years, helping her clients to shift restricted areas found within the facial matrix to create more fluidity and alignment with the body. In doing so, she has been able to help her clients overcome the anxiety and trauma they unknowingly hang on to so that they can move beyond it. In 2020, when she was locked out of her beloved career, she transitioned into a virtual space where she now teaches and guides clients with how to access their facial system using their own hands. Sue lives in London, Ontario, in Canada, with her partner Jarrett and their daughter, Avalina. She was recently published in a book called The Great Canadian Woman, She is Strong and Free, and is the co-host of the Everybody Holds a Story podcast and the collaborative book project. Ultimately, her mission is to help guide the next generation of humans with understanding and loving their bodies. So I cannot wait for you to listen in to this conversation. I wish that when I was in my active years as a dancer, and you will hear that she also has training in a different way of dancing, how much her background and what she is doing right now would have actually helped all of us to release all the things that weren't ours and actually held us back from being the very best, despite to the culture that was laid in and the demands that have been put on us. So without no further ado, here is Sue. May I introduce to you, this is Beth. She always announces. I had to name her because this is always so awkward when I push record and we're jumping into the recording. I'm like, so Beth is my gap. Yes. Hi.
I have a love-hate for Beth, but yeah. I love that you named her. I'm gonna steal that. I'll call her something next time I see Marsha.
Welcome to the show, my darling. Thank you for being here. I am so grateful to have this hour with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be on the other end, and just so honored to be in your space, and that our mutual friend Marsha connected us, because it's just another beautiful human connection.
I couldn't agree more. Isn't that funny? And I was actually thinking about that. Had I not opened myself up more and gotten out of my dancer mindset of, one lane thinking and shutting everybody out, the people that I would have denied to have the honor to spend time with them, it's unbelievable. And all it took was a shift of perception.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like you said, being open to,
Yes.
yeah,
To whatever is coming in, right? Yeah. Okay. So I don't really want to regurgitate that is a really hard word. You all know what I mean. Can you help me out? What's the word?
regurgitate.
Regurgitate. I almost had it.
You
Yeah. What you're doing, but what I really want to dive into, and what came up in Everybody Holds a Story podcast interview, that you and I have so many similar stories that we're sharing. And I want to start with your youth when you were dancing. Can you give us like a 10,000-foot approach of like those first 20 years, because you just turned 25? Yeah, I know, right? There you go. Won you over. Just like that. Watch it.
yeah, I was already there, but you just upped it.
Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show and asking me to share this part of my life, because I don't talk about it often. However, it was a huge part of my, like you said, 20 years growing up. And so first of all, I was a competitive Highland dancer. So that's Scottish with, and I'm not even Scottish, but I'll talk about that in a second. That's where we wear the kilts and we dance over swords in the hot sun. And it's very rigid and very controlled movements. Every dance, like the fling, sword, chantreuse, they all have their own set steps in a book. You learn them, you perfect them, and we compete in the summer at the Highland Games. So I grew up in Ontario. There are a number of Highland Games that happen throughout the summer, usually on a Saturday, with bagpipes and the caber toss and all of those fun events as well. So yeah, I started when my mom threw me into dance with my cousins who were a bit older than me when I was 3. And when we're 3, we just, it's just an extracurricular, right? So I just sort of throughout the younger years gravitated towards Highland dancing. Again, I was with my cousins, they were doing it too. And it was sort of like little Susan, like following in their footsteps, literally. And probably by the time I was 6 or 7, my dance instructor, who was great, she was more of the performance side of things, less competitive. Let's perform and have fun, and nothing has to be very perfect, so to speak. And but she knew that I could be really great at it. So I started competing around 7, and by 9 I was at the highest category to compete. So it went primary, beginners, novice, intermediate, and then open. And so I was in the open category at 9 years old. And that's where you just stay and then eventually start making money at 15. And so, yeah, every couple of Saturdays in the summer, I would be competing on stage in the hot sun with many, many other beautiful dancers alongside me. And for those who don't know really what Highland dancing is, it's just, it's a very symmetrical dance. So, arms are strong, legs and leaps are very controlled. So the flexibility part, like in your experience with ballet, was very different. And so I feel like now looking back, that type of structured dance physiologically in my body helped me to stay strong, symmetrical. Now that I'm playing golf, it's like, wow, my body wasn't meant to whip around like that, you know, like my poor spine.
I love it.
So yeah, like I said, my instructor who, gave us so many opportunities. We went to Scotland and competed around the whole country for about 2 weeks. I did that when I was 21, and I'm glad I did it later in life so I could appreciate more of the land and that culture.
Mhm.
Even though I'm not Scottish, I'm Dutch and Irish. We still did an Irish jig, so I know how to do that. We performed at Disneyland, Disney World. So I loved that performance side versus the competitive side as well. And it kind of was a good balance growing up.
Let's thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Let's dig a little. How did that affect you? Like this highly competitive environment. And I'm really just scratching the surface right now. What were the outcomes? Like what are you, when you started digging deeper into yourself and self-development, what was coming up for you?
I think expectations is a big one. I'd
Your
held
expectation?
I had held a lot of expectations for myself. And looking back at the dancing career, if I didn't win even a bronze medal in a competition, I would be so upset, disappointed in myself. A lot of negative self-talk growing up. So moving through that and at least having that fun performance side helped to balance that for me, because it could have gone in a totally different way. As I became an adult and living on my own, those sort of expectations in terms of school and jobs and even now in my career, that high expectation of myself and what I'm capable of comes through me a lot. And I've had to do a lot of practice with giving myself some grace and realizing that there isn't that like perfection, right?
So a recovering perfectionist, let's just call it what it really is.
Yeah.
I heard a quote yesterday by Kathy Heller. And the question was asked, or she said, could I surrender enough to be me? And that struck me so deeply, because I heard you say perfect more times than I've ever heard in like the first 11 minutes, it's 11:11 here, of an interview. And it just comes back over and over and over again. I watched Michael Schumacher's documentary. I love that man dearly, but he was a perfectionist. And he wasn't okay with the second place. He wasn't okay with anything less than the gold medal. And I don't want to say that's a male energy, or it's something that we see more in the male than in the feminine. But what I'm saying, it is something that was so installed, especially in the 80s and 90s, when we were growing up, that I see now more in our kids growing up, that isn't the goal anymore. At least not, I'm making really sure that isn't a goal in our house. This is one of the reasons why I took my kids out of school and they're homeschooled. It's because this striving for perfectionism actually holds us back from really truly becoming ourselves, from really looking at what we are actually capable of, because we're trying to perfect somebody else's expectations of us. So as a recovering perfectionist, what's the journey? Talk about that.
A lot of different conversations in my mind.
Enlighten me. Let us in, Sue.
And even before you pressed record, you were saying how, when we open ourselves up to possibilities of other things instead of staying in that narrow lane, opportunities come to us that we aren't expecting. And so a lot of my self-talk has played a role in my recovering perfectionism in terms of allowing myself to let things go, let things slide, things that I can't control, and whatever that may be in my parenting or in my work. And, dropping some of that expectation. There's so much power in resting and listening to our bodies. And I don't think I did that, or I wasn't taught that growing up. And I think it's a really important skill, and it's always evolving and growing. So I think that's where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I think that teaching that younger generation in whatever field they're going in, and I'm not talking just, dance or arts, it's for all of us as human beings, that we're putting ourselves into this whirlwind of needing to do all these things in order to get somewhere, where we actually completely forgetting to stop doing and start feeling and understanding ourselves, that everything that we need is really truly in here. We just need to give it permission to let it grow and come out and be really capable and honest with ourselves to see ourselves of who we are, and not trying to chase a picture here or an expectation there. It makes it so exhausting.
Yep.
So exhausting.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you want
Can
to
I
add?
add something? Can I add?
Please do. Yes.
I just want to share this. Do you remember when So You Think You Can Dance and those like TV dance shows came out? So back then I was in my 20s, I think. I'm not aging myself here. And you just sparked this thought, because when that show came out, I was like, I wish that this show existed when I was growing up, because I would have loved to audition and express my body in different ways, because Highland dancing was so rigid. And so you just sparked that thought of how much did I miss growing up, being just so driven in this competitive Highland dancing, right? So like, I remember in grade 8, I asked my mom if I could try another style of dance like jazz or ballet, and she said no. And I think at the time I was like mad because whatever, but I think it was a financial thing for them. That was the reason they say no. So I look back, I'm not mad at it. But I remember being like, like I wanted to try more things. And so I just wonder how that would have shifted. But raising my daughter, and she's been in dance and gymnastics and golf and all the things, and just encouraging her to try, now she plays basketball at school, and I'm like, oh, good for you, like
Awesome.
new things can really just show you different paths that you don't necessarily know, especially being so young, right? And learning so much so quickly.
Yeah. Because we don't know. Like, we don't know yet where we're great at, what our potential is. I don't I don't think we will ever truly tap our potential full out, even until the day that we're going and leaving this earth. And we're denying ourselves the opportunity to do so, though, when we're in that rigid belief of the only way to success is to stay in that one lane. And it has been that story for many decades. I mean, if we're looking at the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, until I think Tony Robbins really came around and started to gain fame and had all of his offsprings, that this kind of mentality was actually bred into us, right? Yeah. It's like, you got to struggle, you got to stay in your lane. Success is hard. If you're powerful, you're evil, all of these things. And I'm done. I'm calling bullshit, like, on the whole thing, really, truly, because look at where we're at. Look at us as humans, where we're at, us as women, where we're at. I just read a post on Instagram from a friend of mine. She's in New York, and she's colored. I am sorry if I'm offending anything with my language. Like, for me, this doesn't even exist. That's why I'm struggling so much with the language. There have been books written by colored authors, and having colored people in the books have been banned in New York City by a certain school board. And I could not believe that in 2021, we still have these issues. I mean, I'm coming from Germany, where in 1933, books have been burned. Next to the theater I used to live, breathe in. And we're still doing this. Give me a break. Like, we really have some work to do. And even if this is, and I'm spreading this over everything, performing arts, like, good Lord, look at all the abuse that's happening there. Is that really art? Does that have anything to do with making art, with being creative, coming from these places of fear and destruction? It has nothing to do with it.
Do you think we're going backwards right now?
Oh, such a great question. I think we're on a
like a teeter-totter.
A teeter-totter, yeah. And we don't know which way to go, because our higher self is really, really pulling, and we're so scared.
Yeah.
So scared to go there.
I know.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, and fear definitely drives so much of everything that's happening. And even growing up, like, I don't know, there's just, yeah. I love that you said our higher self, because when we can actually tap into that, or just start listening to, you can call it intuition, whatever, your soul, and really feel what is right for you, because it's different for everyone, and dropping that fear and just going for it. Like, look at you in your company right now. I would not have brought a massage therapy business virtual last year, because I would have been too afraid.
Yeah.
But when we begin to tap into that higher self, a lot of the noise and that fear and that, the wrong path, like, we sort of run away from it. Or I don't know. I don't know if that's making any sense.
So let's pivot a little bit, because I want to figure out, and I want to understand and share with our listeners, that how did you become an RMT? Like, what was the path to helping others to heal? Like,
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Because I was sitting at a bank, at a call center, searching for a career. I have a degree in politics, and I decided that I didn't want to get involved, or I knew that that wasn't my path. I just wanted to learn about the world. I originally came to university to be a math teacher, but failed calculus. I was like, well,
I love that one.
I know, I know what I'm not doing.
Wow.
So that was good. And then, so I'm sitting at this bank, and this is right when like Google came out again, totally. So,
Well, some people remember that. Don't
I
underestimate.
I remember it. It was way before Zoom and Facebook and all those things. So I'm sitting there knowing that I need to shift. I know that I do not want to work for a bank for the rest of my life. What is Sue going to do? Massage therapy school just kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And I'm like, what is this? I've always been, even with my dancing career, like throughout that career, always stretching my body, always like wanting to be active and like really like strengthen and be strong. And so I believe that that entire journey brought me toward massage therapy school, because I just wanted to help others feel good in their bodies. But I had never even had a massage before. And I had never like, I was like, what is this? So I said yes. I did the prep course because I didn't have a science background, and took the prep course, loved it. My physiology teacher that taught there, she will still be someone that I hear her voice in my head. She was so influential in this path. So it was a 2-year college degree, and the school was right down the street from my house. So it was meant to be.
Beautiful. Wow.
And that was I graduated in 2008. So I started 2006 for that.
Wow. So 15 years in that.
I know.
Well, no. So I don't think I didn't say it because it's something heavy or bad. I
It
think
seems
it's
unreal
great.
that it's been that long. Like it's
So
unbelievable.
even more so than, right, that it was meant to be for you, because you're obviously not tired of it. No. When I read through your bio, I am so intrigued how you, through facial massage, really truly can release trauma. And I'm saying that because the layers of trauma that I'm unearthing right now, and it just keeps coming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder what other ways there are. And then there you are. So how can you go a little deeper in how that all works together?
Yeah, of course I can. This is my jam, Suzanne.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I'll start just explaining what fascia is. So there's that difference between fascia, or like face, or fascia, okay, which is something that like nobody knows. And this is why I always feel like the weirdo, because I'm meant to talk about it, I guess. Every single cell in our body, so 37.2 trillion of them, are wrapped in fascia. So if you think about saran wrap, like the Glad cling wrap, really thin, it's connective tissue, and mostly collagen, mostly water, elastic, and it connects every single cell in our body together. It's the glue that holds us together, from up into our brain cells, all the way down to our abdomen, to our feet, everything. Okay. This system connects to every other system that we have: digestive, nervous system, cardiovascular, everything, because it's connected to every single cell. So I didn't learn this in school. This is, we had to take continuing education credits. And I found John Barnes. He's out of Arizona. He is like the guru, if you will. And he traveled I don't think he does now, but he would travel to different cities. So in Toronto in 2008, in July, I went to Toronto to learn myofascial release therapy. I was in a room with physios and chiros. I was this like lone massage therapist, and we learned this technique. And it is, if you've been for massage, normally they would have lotion or oil on their hands. This does not. So my hands connect directly to your fascia cells, which then connects to every single system in your body. So somehow I was guided to the abdomen through women's C-section scars and those types of, gallbladder surgeries and stuff like that. And when I would access those areas, which scar tissue is just really, really cementy fascia, it would let go in other areas. So neck and shoulder pain, headaches, abdomen, low back pain, hips, feet, abdomen. The majority of our fascia is housed in our abdomen so that it can keep our organs in, because those are really important to keep. Plus, we also make humans in there. So that's really important that it's strong in there. And as a dancer, our core is very, very strong in there. So throughout that process, so again, 15 years of this, we also can release emotions that we've held there, right? Breathing is a big part of how our bodies feel good. And a lot of us hold our breath. So when we can let go of that fascia in our diaphragm, the energy and the decrease in pain and all of those things it's all systemic, it's all connected. So I hope that explains it.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you that question. What kind of a difference would it have made to you when you were competing to have this kind of treatment available to you?
I think it would have helped to decrease some of the pain, right? Like in our calf muscles, I would often have that compartment syndrome or shin splints, people would say. And maybe I'm super fortunate. Yes, I am super fortunate because I've been someone who hasn't had a lot of physical pain, right? Other than my C-section, my emergency C-section, which was only 9 years ago. I hadn't even had a surgery before. But I look back at my dancing friends that I danced with, and they would have low back pain, they would have chronic headaches and all of these things. So yeah, knowing that type of treatment, if that were to exist, it would have helped a lot of people. But in North America, fascia hadn't been studied until 1991. Autopsies, they would just scrape it away as if it wasn't even a system. Wow. In Europe, we can find in Austria and Germany probably as well, they began really studying it in the 60s. So I've definitely read a lot from the early stages of the knowledge of it. But even right now, we're just discovering the technology that we can see it. Like you can't see fascia in an X-ray or an ultrasound, only in an MRI, and it's not even like perfectly clear.
Wow. And yet it is so imperative to our overall, like it holds us together, right?
It's everything.
It's everything. So why do you think it sounds really like a no-brainer to me. It sounds really easy to, why do so many people choose not to take care of their body that way?
I think there is a disconnect in our education system. We don't learn about our bodies unless we choose to in high school. I didn't even take an anatomy class in high school, but I look back and I'm like, man, we should have had a human body class like growing up.
Wow.
And so when we're not faced with something that's important that we should learn, we don't really know that it exists, right?
The knowledge is power, or can be power, if you use it the right way, right? And power, I mean empowering, not to be more powerful than somebody else, but to be able to help others more, or to, just evolve and help others to evolve more and make this place a more beautiful place. In Germany, we didn't have like that. That wasn't even, do you want a massage? I think that's as far as it went. I was so fortunate that in the theater, in a company that I was in, we actually had a massage therapist, and she was on from like 10 to 4 every day, 5 days a week. And she would be, with every performance, she would be behind the curtain with us, helping one person for 80 dancers. And she used to be a dancer herself. So, and I'm saying, because there were already so the needs and the demand on the body were already so much higher than just a simple massage. And I think that's a huge opportunity across the field to understand that there's so many possibilities out there, and organizations are so scared of spending the money on it, thinking that, it's just thrown out, where it's actually an investment.
Yeah, when did that get lost? Or maybe it was never a thing, right?
I think that was never a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, think back.
Yeah.
Anything.
Oh my gosh. I will just share this little tidbit.
Please
my
do.
parents, I don't know if I shared this on our podcast when we interviewed you, but my mom was 17, my dad was 19, and they were in a horrific bicycle accident, like a motorcycle accident. They got hit by a drunk driver. My dad lost his leg from the knee down on his left side because his ankle was shattered. And this was in the 70s. My mom spent a year in a body cast, shattered her pelvis, femur, all these things. They've never gone for massage, Suzanne. Like, I grew up watching my parents stretch on the living room floor because they had to in order for them to feel good, and they exercise. They don't know what I do.
Sorry, they still don't know what you do?
Not really. No. Like, they've never had my hands on them. No. But that just goes to show that mentality. Like, my parents are now mid-60s, right? And so they didn't grow up with these types of treatments or having access to it, or being shown the importance of it or how they could feel. And I mean, there's way more that goes along that story with my mom, and how much scar tissue is in her body, and how, it's like, I wish I knew what I knew when I lived at home, and I didn't, and that's okay. But yeah, it just wasn't available, and it still isn't, actually, where they live in a kind of a small town, and like, even friends that still live there, they're like, oh, who would you recommend? And I was like, well, this person, but they don't do fascial work. It's just regular massage. So again, I feel like the weirdo. but
well,
this
the pioneer. Let's reframe that.
Well, pioneer. I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's like, there's just so much work that needs to get out there, and people need to learn it, find a therapist that they love. And anyways, now that I'm virtual, I teach people how to do it with their own hands.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, because why not?
Cool. Yeah, why not?
Most of us have hands. Actually, I had a client the other day, and she's a quadriplegic. And I was like, Rose, let me just see if you can do this, because she doesn't have full function, and she could. And I was like, see, even the quadriplegic client can do this virtually.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. I know.
Wow.
So because we can all access our abdomens with our own hands, most of us, it's a very guided practice, very gentle, because that's what this work is very slow and gentle. And we're always, as humans, we think, deep tissue and force and all these things. It's like, no, less is more always. And so yeah, now we have these group spaces that we all meditate together, and then it's just becoming so fun to watch, because it hasn't even been a year since I started that business. But when we can connect to our fascia, we can actually listen to our bodies and our intuition and our soul a little bit clearer. And the visions that come through are insane. And we hold space after the practice, and listening to these, to the results, to the experiences that these humans are having during practice, like blows my mind every time. Some will shed tears, some will laugh, some will have these crazy movies going on in their minds. Like, I never thought that this would be what I'm doing now, but it's amazing and I love it.
Oh, it's incredible. Thank you. Last question. What would you tell your 16-year-old self today with what you've experienced so far? If you could tie her to a chair and make her listen to you, what would you say to her?
Listen to yourself. Ignore some of the noise, because that influences our decisions. And movement doesn't have to look a particular way. I think that was 3 things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you know what? You tied her to a chair. You can talk to her as much as you want to. Shake her.
But movement and listening to what feels right with your body in terms of that movement. I wish I knew that earlier. And it's something that I work on now when it's my own sort of routine, whether that's fitness or what I'm doing. It's not always running half marathons or, bench pressing 150 pounds. Like, move the way that feels good and that makes you happy.
Makes you happy. Yeah. Even if your job and your passion is really moving around all the time, right? Yeah. This has been very lovely. Thank you, darling, for sharing. Where can we find you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I think we could talk for hours, but
oh yeah. That's a given. Absolutely. I may just get on a plane because now I can.
Yeah, at least we are in the same country. So where can people find me? I am mostly hanging out on Instagram. So _ Sue Ruhe, SUERUHE. I'll send it to you so you can have it in the show notes.
Oh, we have it. We have everything.
You have it. Okay. So
yeah,
I hang out.
Just want you to plug yourself. Come on.
promote. Okay.
No.
So yeah, Instagram, and then I'll have my links all in my bio. So Everybody Holds a Story is the podcast I host with my wonderful business partner, Marsh Van Weinsberg. That is now a collaborative book series. So we are working on releasing a few books this year. And yeah, for the hands-on virtual work and space, I have called it Grounding Foundations because I just had to, or that kept tapping me. I was like, what is this Grounding Foundations? Anyways, so that's my course, so to speak. But that's where everyone starts in learning how to tap into their own fascia. And then we have the Global Grounding Community, which is open to after you learn the technique, just the basics. And then I have a vision of 500 humans in a Zoom room. So that's on the agenda this year. So if anyone wants to join, reach out to me. And we love
it. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your story. It would mean the world to us if you all could just take or tag us with your biggest takeaway, share this podcast with somebody who should listen to it, and refer Sue if this really talked to you. So we're sending you so much love, you guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.